Hi, and welcome to the Diamond Report for Friday, September 25th, 2020. This is your host, Doug Diamond. Well, the third video in less than a month. I'm sure you all are getting tired of seeing me, but I keep coming across new, important information that I feel like I really need to let you know about. One thing I noticed just as I was going through Anthony Patch's From the Rooftop PDF, which is available freely. There's a link in the description box if you want to grab it. Highly recommend it. You should definitely grab it and share it with your friends, especially Christian friends, but share it with anybody because it explains exactly how this quantum dot microneedle array vaccine patch will work that will become the mark of the beast. This is the mark of the beast technology. Now, because the beast or the biblical antichrist is not on the world stage yet, we cannot say that the mark of the beast is out there being deployed. It's not, but the technology is here, and this is it. And as I mentioned in my last video, I truly believe that the Antichrist will be revealed in March next year, 2021. If you haven't watched that video yet, definitely go back and check it out. Really, you should see the whole series because it will put everything in a better perspective than if you just catch an episode here or there. I think the whole thing will make a lot more sense. One thing I noticed just since the last video is the word luciferase or luciferase. It's actually two words put together. Look how important it is, though, to understand it. It's Lucifer and erase. Because when you accept this system, the Mark of the Beast system, into your body, it erases who you are. And it replaces it with evil, with Lucifer and the Antichrist. You are erased forever from the Lamb's Book of Life if you accept the Mark of the Beast. Now, I'm going to try to keep this video as short as possible. I do find it interesting that part 6, when I finished it just the other day, came out to 70 minutes and 20 seconds. If you've been following this series at all, you will understand the importance of those numbers. 70, as in perfection. Not that I'm perfect, but it's funny that to me it was like God's stamp of approval on what I put out. It was 70 minutes exactly, but plus 20 seconds. 20 seconds. I went into the number 20 in part 4 of my series. If you missed that, it's really important to understand 20 in the context of we're in the year 2020. So don't miss that. Definitely go back and check it out if you can. And just so you know, how I produce these videos involves many, many hours of my time recording and doing different takes and edits and putting things together in a way that to me make the most sense. Hopefully they do to you as well. And for something to come out to be exactly a certain number is not something I was striving for at all. It just happened. And I didn't even notice that it was 70 minutes and 20 seconds until I uploaded it. So it's pretty wild. Now, before we get into a timeline of the unfolding of the Mark of the Beast system, I don't believe it's going to all happen at one time initially. I think it's going to be unveiled little by little. Before we get into that, though, I want to bring your attention to something else that I noticed literally the day after I uploaded my last video. The last video was uploaded on September the 16th, and then on September 17th, Anthony Patch did another live stream, which really made a lot of bells and whistles and lights go off for me, and I prayed over it. And I felt like I really needed to bring your attention to it. And that is this. People send me a lot of videos to watch, just videos that they think are super important and I need to be able to understand it because they're sharing it with me and other people and so on and so forth. I probably get dozens and dozens per week on Facebook especially, which is fine. I just don't have time to watch them all. So what I'm going to tell you next may or may not be something that other people on YouTube are talking about. If so, I have no idea because I haven't gone out to try to find other people talking about this. So if you've heard this before, please forgive me, but know that this was given to me as I was listening to a live stream just the other day from Anthony as he was talking about the Mark of the Beast system, and it just dawned on me that all of this temperature taking, they're aiming these temperature guns at people's foreheads, right in the middle of their foreheads. And some people say, no, you can't do that because we have the pineal gland in our head and that's what connects us to God and so forth. And you can't aim it at my forehead, so you can aim it at my wrist. And so they have their temperatures taken on their wrist or their arm or whatever. I think that, and it just dawned on me when I was listening to Anthony the other day, I think that those two positions are establishing important vector areas on the human body to get us used to being scanned in those areas, the forehead and the hand or the wrist. Now, where have you heard that before? Last time I checked, the mark of the beast was supposed to be either on the forehead or the hand, correct? Well, where are they taking temperatures? The forehead primarily, and also on the wrist, which is pretty close to your hand. Now, is that a coincidence? Because to go into a lot of stores and offices and things like that now, you have to have your temperature taken before they'll even let you in. Well, what if in the future, the very near future, we have to have our foreheads or our hands scanned to reveal the quantum dot Lucif rays to prove that we are part of the Antichrist's beast system? People are saying now that they point the temperature gun at your forehead, and it's like they're pointing a real gun at us and pulling the trigger. They're just getting us used to it. I don't think so. I think it's conditioning us for the mark of the beast, so that we are getting used to having our forehead scanned, getting used to having our wrist scanned before we can do anything that we want to do. And that is where we're headed. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Now let's take a listen to Anthony from the live stream that I mentioned, and he's going to talk about the CDC playbook and the cold chain. I think it's important to understand that the CDC means the Center for Disease Creation, because that's what they are, in my opinion. Let's listen to how the CDC plans to roll out the hypodermic needle version of the COVID-19 vaccine, and for what I believe is the planned failure of the program. I think they're planning on it failing so that they can roll out the real system, which is the quantum dot microneedle array vaccine patch. I think you'll find this very interesting.
The Centers for Disease Control, the CDC, we have their playbook, who's just published for COVID-19. So we're going to take the time, because this just came out, we're going to take the time to look at it in some detail, but as typical, I would like to give you the punchline first, and that is they are presenting not the microneedle array patch, but a delivery system, a route of administration for a vaccine. And as they cite in the playbook, it may be different versions of a vaccine, but delivered by way of a hypodermic needle, not the microneedle array patch. So we are going to apply the patch technique of 180. We're going to turn it 180 degrees around in order to reveal the truth about what is really going on here. In short, this is much ado about nothing on the part of the CDC. This is to give the media something to broadcast. This is something to keep the general public confused and off balance. And it will lead to this conclusion. This is my punchline, my headline. There will not be a hypodermic needle. There will be a microneedle array delivery, but perhaps not in the first round of vaccinations. And why? Well, I'll explain that as we go through the paper. They will eventually get to delivering the vaccine globally to 7.8 billion people by way of the microneedle array patch. Logistically, it's the only way it can be done. Logically, in their estimation, in a timely fashion, the only way it can be done. The microneedle array patch. They will claim, after they attempt the hypodermic needle delivery of one or more versions of vaccines. And they're already saying in the playbook there will be a second dose required. And they don't even have a vaccine, but they're saying in the playbook there will be a required second vaccine. Through the process of the Hegelian dialectic, their modus operandi, problem, reaction, solution, they want to get people so worked up in demanding a solution, just as I said back in 2013 about the MERS coronavirus. They will stir people up, stir up their fear, because the first round, perhaps even the second round of vaccinations, will be completely useless. In their own words. Now, they don't say that in the playbook, but they will eventually have to say, we could not accomplish a global vaccination program using traditional methods, which is the hypodermic needle and syringe route. And again, more details coming in this live stream. And they will get people so angry, so confused and so fearful, because the long promised vaccine or multiple versions of the vaccines will not be delivered efficiently, effectively, in a timely fashion. The government will fall back on its usual playbook, and that is incompetence. And that's by design. They want people to get angry. They want people to demand the vaccine, so they have to stir up the masses. They have to have people pointing the finger at not just the US government, but all governments, and saying, you are incompetent, and a lot of other words they'll use. You are incompetent. Get your act together. Get us the vaccine. People are dying. It's still a pandemic. And for other reasons, they want to go back to work, they want to go back to school, they want to have their liberty back, their freedom of movement. They will demand and demand and demand. So we can expect that. But again, how can you say that 2 doses of a vaccine are necessary when, according to what CDC tells us, there has been no agreement on any vaccine. No vaccine has been developed. Again, we'll apply the 180 to that insofar as if they are claiming 2 doses, if the president is saying we must have distribution centers by October 1st, if we will have, the president is now saying in November, we will have a vaccine. How can those statements be made? How can these plans be drawn up in this fashion if they did not already, at the time that COVID-19 was human engineered, if at the same time they did not already have in place, prior to the release of COVID-19, the vaccine for it? Again, think about it logically. They would have to. Otherwise, they would be endangering themselves, those that were involved in releasing, which really is nothing more than a flu virus. And it's not even a flu virus on steroids. We've covered extensively the convoluted numbers, the conflated numbers. And now, Doug Diamond sent me a story just before we went live this evening, that in Nashville, Tennessee, his home state, there's a lawsuit being brought against the city officials of Nashville because emails have been made public in which the public officials acknowledged that they suppressed the numbers of cases so as to continue to promote the shutdown, the lockdown, the quarantine in the Nashville area. just a tip of the iceberg example of how what is really just a flu vaccine has been inflated into a pandemic. It's an excuse.
Now for some important scripture that I think backs up the clips we just watched. This is from 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 through 12. The coming of the lawless one is by the activity of Satan with all power and false signs and wonders, and with all wicked deception, for those who are perishing because they refuse to love the truth and so be saved. Therefore God sends them a strong delusion, so that they may believe what is false, in order that all may be condemned who did not believe the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So if you missed my telling of what I believe will happen as far as how the next 6 months to a year unfolds, I covered all of that in episode 5 and episode 6 in particular of the End Times Dates series. So if this is the first one that you've seen, please go back and watch the others. Episode 6 in particular will give you more details on what I believe happens as far as when the Antichrist is unveiled, when he comes to the world stage, which I think will be in March of next year, 2021. And that will precede the peace plan, which will begin the final 7 years on planet Earth, starting in September next year. Pretty much exactly a year from right now.
Let's focus on the logistics. In the past, I have provided to you an overview summary of what is known as the cold chain. C-H-A-I-N. Cold chain. The chain of distribution or distribution chain. With typical vaccines, and this is what they're describing, are typical vaccines in this planning document, this game plan, this playbook. They are describing the distribution by way of a cold chain of a vaccine that is requiring delivery, administration by way of a hypodermic needle. Thus, they are treating the vaccine or multiple types of vaccines in exactly the same manner that they have treated past vaccines. In other words, and I'll share with you the temperatures a little bit later that illustrate that there's more than one type of vaccine they're anticipating because there are different temperature ranges. But the point here is that typical vaccines, including over the past many years, the flu vaccines, the seasonal flu vaccines, must be kept cold within a temperature range. From the time that it is produced by the manufacturer, during the entire time of shipment, of transit within the supply chain, and right up to the point of administration by hypodermic needle to a patient. It must be kept cold, and it has to be documented that way. They must have properly trained personnel to maintain the cold chain. It can never be broken, and it must be documented that it's never been broken. Otherwise, they have to throw out the vaccine. Okay? So, what's the big deal about the cold chain? Refrigeration is not required for a vaccine that is delivered by way of a microneedle array patch. This playbook makes no mention of the microneedle array patch. There's no plan for it. But as I said in my opening monologue, what they are describing in this playbook will be an abysmal failure. Okay? And they call it an interim playbook. It's quite detailed, but this is what they're putting out to the media and to the public. That it's going to be routine, that it is going to be a typical vaccine, one that must be kept cold. And yet, with all of the documentation we have shared with you, all of the white papers, all of the pharmaceutical companies that are employing not a traditional vaccine that must be refrigerated, what is typically referred to as an attenuated, that's weakened, attenuated form of the virus. That's what must be refrigerated. That is old school. No one is working with attenuated vaccine delivery for COVID-19. They are all working on either DNA, vector-based delivery of a DNA-modified virus, modifying the genome sequence of the actual virus itself, which was sequenced in January, at least the full genomic sequence, if one actually exists, was published in January of this year. And we've shared that with you many times. It's the one that contains the 4 HIV inserts. Now, in terms of public information, COVID-19, a clean, unadulterated, uncontaminated sample of COVID-19 has never been genomically sequenced. Now, they may have done that, and probably did, prior to its release. They would have to, because this is a man-made construct, and there are many scientific papers that have come out that we've shared with you that illustrate, that state unequivocally, this is a man-made genomic sequence. This is a man-made virus. Therefore, they sequenced it. But whether or not they released the actual genomic sequence of COVID-19 is highly doubtful. But what they have released in terms of a genomic sequence containing the 4 HIV inserts of short genomic sequences themselves indicates very clearly that in order to develop a vaccine, it must be DNA or messenger RNA based. It cannot be a weakened, attenuated version of the virus that must be refrigerated. None of the literature that we have read, that we've presented to you, that we've published in the pages of Entangled magazine, that we've presented in this live stream, none of the DNA or RNA-based vaccines from places like Moderna require refrigeration. This is why the microneedle array patch will be the final definitive mechanism for delivery of whatever one vaccine or multiple types of vaccines that they deem appropriate for distribution and administration to the global 7.8 billion population. Does not require refrigeration. DNA and RNA based don't. Those are the only two leading avenues of research for one or more vaccines for COVID-19. So I chose this scripture this evening regarding liars and deceivers and sorcerers because this document from the CDC is an absolute lie. This is just to give the media something to put out to the public as a stopgap measure, to mislead the public, to divert, here's your 180, to divert the public and, let's say, alternative media types like myself and my wife, to divert the public attention away from the DNA, RNA-based research, to divert the public attention away from the real research that is going on. And why would they want to do that? One is to discredit people like myself. There are many medical professionals and scientists, and now the spokesperson, former spokesperson from Health and Human Services, saying this vaccine or vaccines will be based on DNA or messenger RNA. Those are the two leading predominant methodologies of research underway right now. This CDC playbook is meant to divert the public attention away from whistleblowers, medical professionals, scientists, government officials, people like myself, a layperson, blowing the whistle, saying, no, the vaccine will not be like the vaccine you've had in the past for the seasonal flu, or for mumps, measles, and rubella, or other vaccines. All past vaccines required refrigeration, required this integrity of the cold chain, distribution and delivery system, and were delivered by hypodermic needle. They do not want people paying any attention to DNA and RNA research, nor to the microneedle array quantum dot equipped, luciferase embedded, hydrogel equipped, 5G biosensor enabled delivery system.
Now, before you say, oh, well, I'll never take a vaccine and I know the mark of the beast is coming, so I'll just refuse. Hold your horses there, partner, for just a second, because I think that everyone will be very vulnerable to this system because they will put so much weight onto it that almost everybody will give in. Almost everybody will take the mark of the beast, in my opinion. Only a very, very small number of people won't do it. And that's because they're going to tie everything in life to it. So stay tuned. After the next few clips, I will get into that.
They have to get people stirred up and so angry that they will demand a solution. You could not force this on people. They're already trying to. We're already seeing the backlash from that, the pushback. I'm pushing back against it. But they are trying to push this on people, and they know that it won't work. It's like trying to push a rope from one end forward, or to push a spaghetti noodle forward. You can't do it. But if you grab the other end of the noodle or grab the other end of the rope and pull it, works very well. So in this case, people demanding the vaccine is pulling on the rope, pulling on the noodle, plays right into their real playbook. Not the one that I'm sharing with you tonight. The real playbook is the Hegelian dialectic. So this will fail. These multiple vaccines that they're going to try to distribute that require cold chain refrigeration, require all of these people to be trained to properly maintain that cold chain supply chain, and it will be a complete miserable failure. Not just because of the supply chain, but also because the vaccine that they're trying to administer has no effect on COVID-19. It's not a cure. Therefore, again, ramping up the demand. Then they will roll out. Okay, I hope you're following this. Then they will roll out the mark of the beast. Then they will roll out the microneedle array vaccine patch with the real vaccine embedded in it. None of this is necessary. This entire document is completely irrelevant when you are talking about DNA and RNA based vaccines. They do not require refrigeration. They are specifically designed to be robust, to be embedded in the quantum dots of the microneedle arrays, and to be delivered by the hydrogel within the microneedle array delivery system. By way of review, the hydrogels themselves contain magnetic nanoparticles, MNPs. These are magnetic such that when an electromagnetic impulse is directed at these magnetic particles embedded in the hydrogel is then provided locomotion. It can also change the morphology, the shape of the hydrogel, typically into spirals. It can then provide three-dimensionally within the body directions of travel. The hydrogel is propelled and steered. It is then able to penetrate the blood-brain barrier. It can penetrate through the walls of the capillaries, arteries, and veins of the body. It can enter the brain, enter the neurons. It can enter any cell in the body. The hydrogel will deliver, whether it's a DNA or an RNA-based vaccine, it will deliver its payload by penetrating the outer membrane of the cell, traveling through the cytoplasm, and then penetrating the membrane surrounding the nucleus of the cell. There it will deliver its DNA-modifying genomic sequence. Whether it's DNA-based or RNA-based, these are sequences of nucleic acids. These are short segments of genomes. More clearly said, more accurately said, a genomic sequence, a short sequence of RNA or double helix DNA. RNA gives rise to the double helix DNA. In either case, once they arrive within the nucleus of the cell, the DNA of that person, the host DNA as it's referred to, is permanently changed. And this has been presented, attested to, published by medical professionals and scientists. This isn't just my opinion. This is not just my conjecture. This is factual reporting. We've published this now in 4 editions of our monthly magazine, Entangled. We've made free to the public June, July, and August editions of Entangled magazine. We have included at the end of the September issue a PDF. That PDF is Project Rooftop. That is a summary of the microneedle array vaccine delivery system. It is a summary of why the microneedle array patch delivery system of the coming vaccine or multiple types of vaccines, all of which will be either DNA-based or RNA-based, both of which change the host DNA, qualifying this as the mark of the beast. The June edition of Entangled magazine was specific to the mark of the beast. July was the seal of God. The August edition was the abomination that causes desolation, which was the modifying of the human body, which is the temple of the Holy Spirit, the abomination of desolation of that temple, our body. And September is the new Jurassic Park, which again is all about DNA modification, chimeras, the technology that is attempting to destroy God's creation. I say attempting because God is not going to allow this to continue to its full fruition. Remember, he cuts the days short, otherwise no man would survive. Satan is, through the mark of the beast, through the DNA modification, attempting to separate man from God. Because those that take the mark of the beast, as you well know, there's much more to it than just not whether or not you're able to buy and sell. So much more. This is the control of the minds of humanity. This is the enslavement of humanity.
And a little break from the seriousness for just a second, just an update on the Stanley Cup final between the Stars, which I mentioned they would make it to the final, and they did, as well as the Lightning, who are also in the final, just like I said would happen. So far, that's held true. The Lightning are currently ahead in the series 2-1, so they're only 2 games from winning the Stanley Cup, as I believe I foresaw back in December of last year when I announced it to my family and friends that I think that the Lightning will be the ones that win the Stanley Cup. At the time, I didn't realize that this will probably be the final year for all hockey and all professional sports, meaning 2020 and 2021. And as we all know, Satan fell like lightning. So I think the Tampa Bay Lightning win. They're only 2 games away now, so it's super close. And that will be over the Dallas Stars, which to me represent the fallen angels or the fallen stars. So we'll have to see how it plays out, but it's really close now. So this Mark of the Beast patch, and I do think it's funny that it's called a patch, and Anthony's last name is Patch. Just like my last name is Diamond, and Anthony talks about nanodiamonds, nanoparticles, essentially. It's pretty funny how we're both kind of in the mix there. I guess it really is God's sense of humor, just like he says. So this patch will be mailed to everyone, or it will certainly be available pretty much everywhere. So if you don't have one, it will be really easy to find it and apply it yourself. You won't have to have a doctor or a nurse or someone like that administering it. You simply peel it off and stick it to your forehead or to your hand and apply it yourself. And you just stick it on and peel it back off. It's really easy and it's really fast. They're going to make it seem so simple. And if you just do this, then you get all these great benefits. And they're going to have a multitude of benefits that you will get if you take the mark. So no refrigeration is needed. People will be able to apply it to their own skin, to themselves. And so it does become an act of worship, essentially, from the standpoint of worshiping the beast system. So when you worship the beast system, that means you give into it in order to be able to do anything and go anywhere. So they're going to have the ability to buy and sell tied to this thing, obviously. We're sort of seeing that now with the face masks and the lockdowns and having to have your temperature taken and things like that to be able to go into a store. We're kind of seeing that already play out. But certainly the ability to buy and sell will be part of it because of the cryptocurrency system, which I think will be Libra. And I also think that your medical records will be tied directly to it, obviously. And then 2, I think they'll tout it as a digital identity that is hack-proof. I think people will see safety in it from that standpoint, that they'll be able to have this one-of-a-kind system of identification that's part of their body that no one could then steal and then take their money or take their identity or whatever. So I think there'll be a safety aspect to it for some people that will appeal to them. Obviously, you have the people who are just scared silly because of this fake pandemic, that they think that they take this mark and now all of a sudden they're immune to having any kind of sickness. They won't catch COVID and die. It's total nonsense. But that, people will certainly fall for that one, the fake pandemic. And you also have the people who just want to get back to normal life, which I think most people really do. They want life to go back to normal. They want their freedom to come back. And if they tie this mark to freedom, quote unquote, I think that will appeal to a lot of people as well. Here's where it gets really interesting. I think the mark will appeal to people's sense of greed. And it could be that the way that the Antichrist causes people to have the mark, to take the mark, is that maybe he pays them off. Maybe he promises a certain amount of credits in their digital bank account if they take the mark. And not only that, if you take the mark, we will forgive all of your debt. You see how this quickly spirals out of control and appeals to almost everybody? When they throw money in the equation, everything changes. So I definitely think that there will be a sense of money worship involved in this. They could pay people off, essentially, to take it. Who knows how much money they'll get, but it'll be digital currency because there won't be any real cash anymore because, God forbid, there could be a germ on a dollar bill somewhere, so we have to get rid of it all. So I think the act of worshiping money will be a huge part of what will appeal to people who take the mark. The ability to buy and sell, the ability to have a digital identity that's hack-proof, and here's the other one, the ability to travel. If you can't travel, if you can't go anywhere without this mark, that will also appeal to a lot of people. So you have the sense of worship in all of these different aspects. I really feel like the Lord laid this on my heart as far as all these different things that will be tied directly to the mark of the beast. And it's going to be really hard to turn it down. But if we accept it, we get Lucifer erased from the Lamb's Book of Life. It's final. There's no going back because your DNA is forever changed from the way God created you. Thank you all for listening. I sure appreciate it. And just know that I really felt led to bring this information to you I was getting in my prayer time. And I felt like the world really needed to know. So if you would, please share this with your family, your friends, fellow believers, people you know. This is information that we all need to be able to understand and pray about and ask the Lord for guidance. So again, take it to the Lord in prayer. We'll see you next time.